and live your life today. It doesn't matter what they say.
Welcome to another episode of Red Lotus Life, where we provide education and resources to domestic violence, abuse, and human trafficking survivors. As always, I have my beautiful co-host here and co-creator, Sarah Elizabeth. We do several different things here on this show. We have education, we have workshops. We also have a resource playlist where we bring in different people of different modalities, different skill sets, and ways to help and serve others here. And I'm so excited because that is actually what we're doing today. We have Janna Bowman with us today. And I'd like to share a little bit about Janna because she's amazing. Can I just say that whenever you and I connected on our call, it was just so beautiful in every way. You have this amazing energy about you. And I know that's what we kept talking about too, was we're like, oh my gosh, we just love each other's energy. But we met in Arete. Arete is a high-level business mentorship with Ed Milet and Andy Frisella. And Janna is you're the owner of JDuck Solutions. So whenever I asked for a little bit of information, like your bio and different things like that, I loved in it that you said you're known as the visionary whisperer.
I love it.
It's so good. So basically, Janna helps visionary leaders and CEOs with their business and the strategies and the next steps of their vision and what they want to do with their business. When I heard this, I knew she had to be on the show because we work with high-level people. We work with high-level entrepreneurs, CEOs, that sweet C position that you're talking about. People around the world that are authors and writers and podcasters and people who are changing ordinances and laws in their own countries around child sex trafficking and all kinds of things. And so when we work with these people at these high levels, because we love it, we're passionate about the visionary leaders, right? When we're working with them and we're releasing the conditioning around what they've experienced with abuse and domestic violence and all the things that they've been told that they're, not smart, they can't do it, they're just can only be a stay-at-home mom and not this or that. But what happens when they work with us, if they don't already hold a high position like that or hold some kind of leadership position in their community, they get there real fast. And not only do they get there fast, but they also usually end up starting a business. So whenever we're talking about vision and you're saying, oh yeah, I can help people, this is my gift, this is what I do, is help people with their visions. I knew I had to have you here with us because here's the other thing that happens when you release conditioning and those limiting beliefs that you can't do it or you shouldn't do it. All of a sudden you get all the reasons why you should. And then that creates a lot of chaos. A lot of chaos and a lot of mess. And then people get overwhelmed and say, where do I start? So that's why we are so excited to have you here and to hear a little bit more about you, your story, because you have an incredible story on how you got to where you are today. And I'd love to basically just turn the time over to you and you can introduce yourself here to the group if you'd like.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you so much for that intro. And while I don't fit everybody that, is your audience, but I can identify with the struggle and being told no and being told, I had high school teachers tell my parents in a parent-teacher conference that I should never go to college because I just wasn't right. I had a teacher essentially tell me in front of a whole class that I was not qualified. And so part of that was I just had a learning disability. Now, it was in the era when they didn't know what to do with that. Like they didn't have the tools like they do now. There was no IEP plans. And it was just at the beginning of that. But it was a short-term memory function that I failed every test and quiz. But somewhere along the way, there was just that, like, I'm not going to fail. Failure's not an option, which is one of my favorite quotes from Apollo 13. I just took that on with grit and perseverance. And kind of anytime somebody told me no, it was more, I took it more as a challenge, or like, would just watch me. And so I was able to just overcome in tremendous ways. And my dad always loves to say, and you have 3 degrees, where like the same amount as the rest of our whole family. But I think that just goes with your audience, that once you're able to find that core strength and believe, and that's the biggest thing, believe in your own core strength. It's not we're always have it. It's always in us, but it's just breaking free from all of the voices in our head and often the people around us that tell us we can't, to be able to discover that. And so I just really, I get that inner strength, that core, that determination that so many, visionaries have. And then that's where I evolved to where I am now. I realized over the course of my career and doing many different things that I always attracted. My clients were always visionary leaders, and there was just the ability to get them. And I think I have just such compassion and passion to work with them, because visionaries just think differently and they speak differently. And they often have a different language that a tactical implementer person does not get. They're like, okay, get to the facts. Like, what are we going to do? And a visionary often just needs to free will. And the visionary is going to come, as you said, Lori, that when you open the floodgates, there's like 100 ideas all at once. It's like, you just like open the faucet full steam. And to somebody who isn't able to see vision or work with that, that's completely overwhelming. And so visionary is often met with no, not possible. That's not practical. And so many times, if that, like me, that's just a challenge to push forward, rather than possibly helping someone helping me to kind of say, hey, let's narrow this down. So again, I think it's a language barrier often. And so that's where I came up with a visionary whisper, because it's not that neither one is wrong, and both of them are right. But it's just, how do you speak the same language? How do you interpret each other, so that, like, again, like in life, like a personalities, how does one understand the other, or say words that are clarifying but not negating? And the versus the visionary to say, hey, okay, I realize maybe I was too much, and becoming a little bit more self-aware and balancing the two.
I love that. Can I take us back just a little bit to the beginning of your story?
Absolutely.
I would love to know what you would attribute the innate ability to overcome. I know the whole phrase around failure is not an option, and I feel that so deeply within my own soul. But what do you attribute that initial innate drive and determination that no matter what, you're going to overcome?
I would have to say, one, I think I was born with it, because my mom, and I credit this back to a story my mom tells. She goes, when I was pregnant with you, I always prayed that I wouldn't have a son like your father. My father's very driven, very positive. She goes, forgot to mention not a daughter. But then also, I think just having an incredible family support system that told me I could do whatever I needed to do, that told me I was capable, and grandparents that were great examples. So I think that's really the difference, is I was not shunned, and I was supported and told like I was great and I was good and I had abilities, even though it may not have looked like that on paper. So I truly believe that it was the innateness, and then the outward support that I had from my family.
Beautiful.
I love that. I love that you said that you were born with it, and then you had said you had this support, right, from home. I'm somebody, so I don't even remember how much of my story that I have shared with you, or my experiences, but I'm somebody that grew up in a very loving home. I had a very loving family. I was fully supported, especially whenever it came to education or career or anything like that. And yet I still found myself in very extreme abusive relationships. So in my adult life. So I like that you even said that, because not all people actually had the childhood abuse, right? The childhood stuff going on and being told that they couldn't and they're not worthy or they're not smart. And I like this because you said you were born with it. And I feel like I was born with it too. Because
Mhm.
from an early age, even from like at a year and a half, my father died unexpectedly. And so I feel like it's never been trials and tribulations ever. It's just always been my life, and this is how it is. And I know Sarah Elizabeth is the same way. She's
Mhm.
experienced some pretty extreme stuff too. And it's never really been like a state of victim or anything. It's
Right.
always been like, no, it's innate. And I was born for this. Actually, is that what I
Mm.
always say? I'm like, I was born for this stuff because of the way that I personally have been able to move through it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Sarah? On your stuff?
I 1000% believe that it is an innate drive that I was absolutely born with. I think that there are some of us that just come into this world who were meant to create an impact. And I think that we have the experiences that we have. And again, in this conversation, we're talking about domestic violence and, trauma. And we then take those experiences, and that becomes the impact that we create in the world. I mean, it becomes our purpose and our passions. And, it's just so beautiful to be able to work with those that we work with and watch them be able to overcome the challenges and then take it and create their own impact. It's just
Mm.
it just fills my heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love also that you talked about core strength and um, like discovering the core strength. When you talked about your learning disability, I know that there's a few people in our audience that that's a big thing actually with abuse, and it doesn't matter if it comes from family or relationships. It can 100% come from school, right? Whenever, and it's always, I feel like whenever we're told we're not smart, like that just kind of devastates, right? It's devastating. If we're not smart, we're not intelligent enough to do something, that immediately almost like creates the limiting belief. So, and I think I go back to thinking about, I have one client that I work with that she experienced stuff like that of being told, you can't do this, you're not smart,
Mhm.
there's no way you could do anything.
Mm.
And she literally at the top of her tests and everything has to write, and her boards, she's actually, what is she now? I'm not even sure what she is now because it's been a few years since we've worked together, but she is in the hospice world, and she was a nurse at the time, but I know she's way more than that now and is actually looking into possibly opening her own things. But she was had to write at the top of her test and put a little like at the top of every page and say, I am smart, I am smart, I am
Mm.
smart, just so that she could get through it. And of course, she's smart. She's amazing. And I can't even imagine. She's one of the best hospice nurses. She's actually sought after throughout the nation right now to come and be contracted with different companies. And I just sit there and go, I can't even imagine like hospice and that transition, right? That
Mm.
transition, like you need amazing people, open-hearted, compassionate, empathetic, sympathetic people in those positions. I can't imagine if she thought there's no way I could do this. There's no way I could be a nurse. And she just continued to live her life without that. So
Mm.
I don't know. It's amazing that you've been able to overcome that as well and have pushed through. What are the degrees that you hold?
Well, I got a bachelor's in business and a bachelor's in tourism, like tourism and hospitality and tourism. And then I went on to graduate school in tourism industry. So it was kind of the bigger picture. My first career was in doing event planning and event design, and really worked with taking a visionary's idea kind of like, I want to create this and impact this. And that was really my first foray in working with that. And then just creating experiences for audiences. And that's, again, what I've just translated into working with business owners and visionaries, is taking their visions and their ideas and helping integrate it in their team to create a great experience, which could be sales, revenue, or a loyalty with their customers. So kind of that full circle. And I know that when a visionary in a setting of a business, when they don't feel understood, when they don't, then what gets me up in the morning and driving to do this is, what if that idea, what if that problem they're solving doesn't come to fruition, and they are stuck, and they don't know how to get to the world? Can I live with myself if whatever that is doesn't come to fruition, and I could have been part of that? And so I think that that's really the driving force. And I think, again, like you were talking about, so many visionaries have learning disabilities. I think because they're wired, they're not meant to sit in a classroom. They're full of ideas. They don't like to concentrate. They may not think like other people do. So often I think the school system, this is nothing against the school system, that the way it's designed isn't structured always to maximize the learning of someone who has a lot of those God-given visionary traits. And so I think they just grow up frustrated. And if you look at, so many of the great leaders, the visionary leaders, like, they failed school, they never went to college, they never did this, but they had great ideas to change the world, and they just needed people to help them with it. And so I think that's kind of the both. And I had great success in school, and I think that was just grit and determination. And my grandfather was an educator, and it was kind of like, college is not an option in my family. Like, it's not an option not to go, because he was a great educator. But I know that I could do it. And so part of it was like, no, I did it, and I could push through. But I think that's just even more my passion to serve leaders, is to help those ideas come to the world, because they're often to solve great problems or needs or whatever, or products. And it's really always looking outwards to help someone else. And that's really one of my core values.
That's so beautiful. I would love to know how you implement this work in the world. Like, how do you take that? How do you help people to decipher and sort of wade through the chaos in order to bring their gifts to fruition?
Oh, I love that question. A lot of it is listening. A lot of it is really listening, and just it's just taking all of their ideas and their thoughts and connecting the dots. I mean, that's really all it is. And go, hey, I hear what you said here, 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 and I see a bridge, and this is it. And they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that. And so, like, I was on a call this morning with somebody who's like, I have this event this week, true visionary, like classic visionary. I have this idea, and I'm working with a partner, and I haven't created a landing page, but I have an event this weekend. And then I think I want to go consulting. And I was like, okay, like, breathe, like, let's take a deep breath. Like, what is your end goal? Like, do you want to sell product? Do you want to get names? As a consultant, what's your end goal? And then I always like to say, whether it's a call, like we have a strategy session call, or it's a project, I always say, what's the one goal you want as a result of this? And then what's one next step? So at the end of our call today, I was like, okay, so now we've talked through all of this. Here's the one next step. And I think I always do that, because so many times as a business owner, and have so much visionary in me, I'm like, I just want a grown up to tell me what my one step to do today. Like, I have 1,000 ideas. I feel like I'm not productive. I just want that, like, parent or grown up to say, do this today. And I'm like, okay, I'll do this today. And so I really believe in the practical and helping someone, especially visionaries. So take all of their ideas, and whether it's a big project or a one call or a series of calls, really feel where they want to go. Like, have them articulate what it is that they want to achieve. Where do they want to go? What is the impact they want? And then essentially work backwards to help bring those ideas together and create a plan, or the next steps, or the strategy, either to get them there, or to hand off to their team, or bring other team members in. But it really is more listening and connecting the dots to really get what their mind and heart is doing. So I really believe that what's in their heart, what's in their soul, is what comes out of their mouth. Now, oftentimes that's not necessarily what their business is doing. And that's where I go, okay, I see where the disconnect is with your team, because your mind is going this way, which is not bad, but your company is going this way. So, okay, here's the problem. How do we either merge those or separate those? And so it's just a lot of listening. And my favorite is when I have a long-term client and say, hey, we're going to do a really big project or commitment. I'm like, it requires a face-to-face meeting. And I always like to go to lunch, dinner, get out of the office and just get them talking about life, family. And someone said, oh, are you a coach? I'm like, no, not really. But when you get what their other interests are, everybody talks about what's really on their mind and their heart. And that's where I really go, okay, here's the core issues and the problems is they're bored, which visionaries often get. They're bored. They don't like this. It's not exciting anymore. Or, hey, they've lost complete interest. So it's like kind of helps me to redirect, hey, do we need to take those ideas and reignite the passion? What's the lock? Are you too in your business? Are you just stuck and that's why you're not passionate? Or is it really you've solved this problem in your mind, you're ready to move on? And so sometimes it goes into a lot deeper issues rather than, hey, let's just get the bigger ideas and bring them down to a practical. Really, visionaries, we're great people, but we always like adventure and moving on to the next thing. And details are not always part of the process.
I identify with that so much.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think it's really cool what you just said, because I feel like sometimes there's two things that happen, right? Whenever you say they get bored, sometimes it's, okay, they're not sticking with it long enough to actually have it grow and expand and evolve. But then there's the other side of it, that sometimes those people are the ones that just ignite it and then they hand it off. And sometimes whenever they feel like they have to stay in this role or in this company or something like that, then that's when it just feels suffocating and they don't want to be there anymore or do anything. And so whenever you can actually listen and hear what it is that lights them up, that their passion is about that. I mean, I have one client that he just loves to start companies. Like that's what he loves to do. He loves to start the companies, get them going, and then he sells them or hands them off to a team, right? And then he moves on to the next thing, because while this one's already going, he's already started on this one. And for a long time, I was always like, but wait, what about this? And then I finally realized that no, he's somebody that he has the ideas, brings them into fruition, gets them going, and now he's moving on to the next thing. So that's super cool. How often do you see people want to move on before this hasn't really gotten going yet?
Oh, almost all the time. But I think that's often a visionary. And so I think it's I love this saying from Ed Milet is, how do you create a vision so big that your whole team can see themselves in it? And I think that's really the key, is helping the visionary see, how do we create this beyond just this one idea? How do we create this so big that it's so big for you? And bring in those leadership skills that they're actually then creating sub ideas by nurturing their team. And then it still remains exciting. You're still growing a team, because then what about the marketing person says, hey, what if we try this new approach or this new thing? And so then your team starts with a lot of the ideas and growing, and it's growing even bigger, and you're not having to, you spark the idea in a whole lot of people. And so I think that's really the difference of transforming just a small company, a one idea where you're leading it, versus transforming the vision to, it could be multifaceted, but it's so big that it requires you to ignite everyone else. And you gain energy from that. And again, that's not every leader, but a lot of times that's kind of what I see, is that's how you can grow. If there's still newness, there's still excitement, and you're building a bigger company, and you're building a vision that other ideas can come under that umbrella.
Love that. Are you familiar with human design by chance?
Yes, I'm just learning about that.
We teach it. So
Mhm.
we're very much, we know a lot about it. We're pretty familiar with it. And we love that because like the projector is somebody that is going to get bored real fast and not want to, they're going to present the idea and then and then want to hand it off or go start something different. So it's really fun to do like we've done where we consult businesses with their team and we find out what's their human design to make sure that they're in the right roles, right? The right seat on the bus.
Mhm.
I know there's a million other ways, but this one, with my career, I've been in so many positions in so many different places, but I always find myself in that position of hiring and training and putting everyone in the right seats on the bus. And so it's been this human design is the one thing that never fails, ever.
Mm.
And so, and it grows with the person too, and it grows with the team. And so I really enjoy human design. So I'm excited that you're looking into it and you're learning about it. To ask, there was something here around, and I'm going to take us back just a little bit. When you were talking about the visionaries who impact the world and how most of them have failed school, I mean, look at Einstein, right? Like Einstein was so crazy, but like super intelligent at the same time. And look at what he's done for the world. And that there is a pattern, there is a loop of that, right? And so when you were talking about what if they can't get that idea and bring it to fruition, like, holy cow, I can't live with myself if that happens. One of the things that I encourage anyone here to do, I just want to share what my children. So um in the Japanese culture, education is everything. So I was told from a very young age exactly what I was going to do as a career and everything else. I was going to be an electric engineer. That's what I was told I was going to be, an electric engineer. And I remember saying that when people say, what do you want to be when you grow up? An electric engineer. And people would look at me like, do you even know what that is? I'm 5, right? Do you even know what that is? No, I didn't know what that was. But they kept telling me I would be in some kind of tech something or whatever. And it was all about money and things like that. Well, I end up being into like tech support and doing programming and all that mainframe stuff. And I remember everybody saying when they'd come in, they would just go, you are not the typical technical programmer, all of that. And I was like, no, I'm not. Because I'd sit there and I'd talk to the IBM guys that would come in and I'd ask them about their families and things like that. And they're just like, this is not your stereotypical personality. So I started to look into that. And it was interesting because I saw it actually go down generationally with my children, right? Because that's what had been handed down throughout the generations for me. So I noticed myself saying the same thing,
Mm.
college, you got to do this, you got to do that. Well, my daughter, she was in and out of all kinds of schools. Nothing really quite landed for her. She was someone who was into sports. She was really good at being like an athlete. She was being scouted in volleyball and basketball when she was in intermediate school. And so that was like her thing. And it was never really the grades. Like she would get real bored with that. And so she ended up going to all these different schools. The one where she ended up actually thriving in was an art school, and it was performing arts, which was
Mm.
also interesting because she was an athlete. But she loved it because it wasn't your typical math, language, history, all of that, and the conditioning that happens with it. It was more being able to use your mind in a creative way. And that's who she is. She's very creative. She's an artist. And she's amazing. She actually has her own business, which is funny. She's an adult now, has her own business. She's found herself in the creative art world, makes jewelry. She does sound baths, meditations. I mean, just all kinds of things. Yoga. She's has the highest level of yoga credit. Can I even say that word right now? I can't say that word right now, but the highest level of training that you can get with yoga. And she's just thriving in this way. And honestly, I don't think she would be there without being in a school where she was encouraged to actually use her creative abilities, right? And
Mm.
her artistic expression. And then my son, same thing, he was getting ready to fail out of school. He almost didn't get his diploma. And if it wasn't for one counselor, he had a great counselor. And we asked, what are the options here? Because he was literally failing out of school. He had D's and F's. There was no way. It was to the point where they said, you should just stop coming. Like they actually said that, you should stop coming. But he is so intelligent and so smart. And he is my adrenaline junkie. So he's the one that was out on the dirt bikes and the skate parks and BMX racing and all of that. And I knew that he had high potential as well because he was excelling in all of that. He was a national championship and all this stuff. And so I sat there and I went, we need other options. What are our other options? And they gave a tech school. And in this tech school, he was able to gain skills with graphic design and producing music and things like that. And then that's where he started to go into. And now he installs smart home things in like these $10 million homes where all you have to do is talk to the house and it's doing stuff for you. But he does all of that and he loves it. He loves it. So, and he makes really good money doing that. So it's really interesting how when we talk about traditional school systems, I think they're great for the right people, but I also love all the different types of education and in school education that's coming out where kids can actually open up and see, well, what's right for them. And a lot of times it's not the typical traditional way. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Go ahead, Janna.
Well, you look at the evolution. Before we had one-room schoolhouses, and they farmed the women sewed, again, not to be stereotypical, but that's what they did. They learned trades, they learned cooking and gardening, and then the guys would be in the barns and the fields. And so it was a good mix of books and hands-on technical. And I think we've moved so far away from any hands-on that we were required to sit at a desk for 8 hours that I think we've, just like you said with your kids, Lori, we've taken out a good portion of our brain to develop any of that creativity or functional movement, like just hands, working with your hands, to really discover where our zone of genius is. And that I think we're producing maybe so many more people that think they're failures, rather than excel until you just unless you have those right mentors or parents or teachers or counselors to come alongside you and help gear you to your best learning style, to your technical approach, to your hands, and gear your gifts and talents. So again, not to discredit, our school system, but I just kind of look at where we were before and, the Industrial Revolution and then where we've come to, and it's like the pendulum. I think we've just swung so far to the other side that we've maybe lost that aspect to develop creativity and hands-on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that because I love what you just said here again about discovering your zone of genius because so many people do get shut down in every era of their life. But if you have that tool to do something different, or you have that idea, you have that vision, it goes back to this whole failure is not an option. In fact, we always say that there is no failure. It's only lessons or experiencing. It's either, okay, there was a lesson learned, or we're just experimenting with this. Like, we're just going to keep doing different things. We're going to tweak it a little bit here and there. I think this is amazing on so many levels. I wanted to share what was happening. We just got done with a challenge. We have a membership called Say Yes to Soul, where every month we end up focusing on a different area of our lives. And we're focusing on service to others right now, which is really cool because it's actually sharing our authentic gifts in a way of serving others in the world, right? And serving our human man. I like humanity and all that. Oh my gosh, I'm tripping over my words today, but that's okay. So what I wanted to share was somebody in that group and in that challenge, she's 60. She just turned 60 this year. And she is already, because of that challenge, now getting ready to start a whole nother career. Like, I feel like once we get, I'm 50, and I feel like once we get to like the older, not older, more experienced time of our life, that we do have some of these career changes and skill sets, right? That prepare us for the next version of who we are. And so here she is, just turned 60, and she's getting ready to release a book now. And I love it because here she is again, she's impacted the world already. That's what she was saying to us, is she started a nonprofit that actually is, it's a brick and mortar nonprofit here locally, where it's supervised visits with parents, and so that the kids are in a safe space and the parents are in a safe space to do the supervised visits. And she's like, oh man, I thought this was what my highest achievement was going to be, right? And this is what I was here in this life for. And now she has a book coming out that's going in a completely different direction. And it's beautiful to see that. So I don't know, it's just fun. It's fun to not have limits, I guess. And that's the main message I feel like I would like to get out to everyone, is that it doesn't matter where you came from, what you've experienced in your life. There's always more. And if you're thinking about it, like, follow that, because there's something to it. Have you ever read Big Magic by chance?
I have not.
Have you, Sarah Elizabeth?
No, I'm familiar with it, but I haven't actually read it.
Yeah, I can't remember the author's last name. It's Elizabeth. I don't know.
Gilbert?
Yes. Elizabeth Gilbert. You should read it, Janna, because it's amazing. It talks about those ideas and how those ideas are actually what's alive. And the ideas kind of travel from person to person to see who's going to bring this idea to fruition, because it's their impact. It's this idea's impact for the world. And so it will only stay with a person for so long, and then it travels to like the next person. And I think there's something to that.
Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's something to that, of like, if you have this idea, you're meant to bring it into the world if it lands in your lap. It has chosen you for the time being. So if you can bring it to fruition, it's going to create big impact.
I have a question for you. I am curious to know the difference that you see, say, if you're working with somebody who's maybe just getting started in business, they're a visionary, as compared to someone who, like we're speaking to, maybe they're in a place where they're changing careers, or all of a sudden they realize that they haven't been able to really unleash their visionary. Like, what are the differences that you see when working with those two different sort of groups or communities?
Well, I would say one suggestion to both communities is to don't do it alone. That I think one of the things that my clients, and it would fit for both of your scenarios there, is it gets lonely at the top, in a sense, whether you're leading, whether you're a visionary, whether you just have all these ideas, is make sure to surround yourself with like-minded people. It could be colleagues, it could be friends, it could be mentors, it could be, even that's where a lot of like consultants or coaches or masterminds come in, because it does get lonely. And I think that's where it helps. One is the young entrepreneur just starting out. Hey, deep breath. It's like, kind of like, you got to go through the paces. There's not instant success. Don't keep changing your mind every month or every 2 months, and just really give them almost that, much like we all were when we were kids, that depth of maturity to kind of mature an idea. And that sounds horrible to a visionary, but really there's something about that like, don't squelch the idea, but hey, here are some of the broad foundations to help really make it come to life. And hey, just keep going with it. Like, just hang on with it. Don't run. And then for those who are changing careers, I think it's letting go of a lot of the fear and saying, hey, you can fail. So it's just like every kid, like they just fall in, like a newborn learning to, or a young toddler learning to walk. They fall and they fall down. They get up, they fall down. They get up, they fall down. And I think that's your young entrepreneurs. They're okay to fail. They're okay to just like do what they don't know. But if you're changing careers, it's often you begin to let life, oh my gosh, my mortgage, my kids, my family, I'm going to let somebody down. And how do you balance that? Because those are real life things. So not negating any of that. And how do you balance that and go, no, I'm going to live in almost like I'm going to stake it all because I believe so much about it, and almost teaching them to share that passion with those people around them and say, I know you may think I'm crazy, but I so believe this. And I think so many times when you give them that permission to really speak that to those around them, then I think that people, if they really care and love you enough, they support you in that vision. They still may think you're a little crazy, but so I think it's the balance of almost too much like lack of fear and too much fear. But again, I think that the main consistent factor is always have a great group around you, that you can call, like that emergency text when, oh my gosh, I think I'm making a crazy move, or I need help because I think I've lost it all. You need those one or two people or that group of people in your life.
Mhm.
I love that. I think this is a really good place to sort of speak to community. So when you're speaking about making sure that you're surrounding yourself with the people who can support you, do you feel it's important both within your business, excuse me, within your business as well? So, when you're creating the foundations, you're building the structures and putting the systems in place, what would you say to that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, even I think equally, and sometimes they merge between business and personal, but I think equally you need both. And I mean, I often say as a consultant, you may not need me all the time, but for this season, this is the tool you need. For another season, you may need that mastermind because you may be in a different kind of need of support or a different aspect of your business. But I think it's always great to have those best friends. And if they, or colleagues, it could be a fellow business person that you can just be honest with. Because so often as a leader, and I want to be careful when I say this as a visionary, or if you lead a big company or starting out, being transparent to your team is important. So I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I think sometimes there's a level of when you haven't gotten to make that decision-making process and you're wavering and you're trying to find ideas and solutions, you can't, not everybody can handle that. Especially your company may take that perceived as, oh my gosh, we're sinking, or he doesn't know what he's doing. And there's a time and a place to be a certain transparency to your team, but there's also we're just human. We need that sounding board. We need someone else to help us make those decisions. Or, oh my gosh, I'm in a pinch, and advisors to help you. And so absolutely. And I think that looks different at different seasons of your business and seasons of life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I really love that. I
Mhm.
love that. Go ahead, Lori.
No, I was just going to say that's what Sarah Elizabeth is to me.
Mm.
So I'm like, I love this. It's funny because I've been in business for a while now, 5, 6 years, and she has literally watched me like like do everything, and I bounce things off of her the whole time. We've known each other for so long. She's been with me through it from the very beginning. So it was only natural when I asked her to come be part of all of this and be part of like this Red Lotus Life and the YouTube channel and everything else that we're doing, because she literally has been that. And I also love what you say about the transparency and using discernment, but also being vulnerable enough to have those people on your team that you can trust. And they're not going to think, okay, the ship is sinking, because I've experienced that too with team members that I've brought on. And I thought, okay, I can talk to them about these things, but then they were like, oh man, the ship is sinking, even though the vision is here, right? And they can see themselves in that, but then they've gone somewhere else. So yeah, I love what you're even sharing about all of this. Um, I had a question and it just barely left me. And it had to do with when, oh, that's what it was. Okay. So that's the other thing is I love that you talked about, there's really not, I'll paraphrase because I can't remember the exact words that you used, that there's not that overnight success. Like you have to allow your vision to grow. You have to plant the seed and allow it to grow and allow it to evolve. So what is your advice for people that, when do you think it's time to let something go and to move on to something different? What are the signs?
Oh, wow.
I know it's a loaded question.
I mean, the real answer, I mean, the pat answer is it's different for everybody. But I think there could be when it's not even a passion, but it becomes, I mean, yes, passion can come and go and you can get stuck, but when it feels like it's a job, as a visionary, it feels like it's a job, and when you're trying to get up in the morning and feel like when you worked at a job and you don't even want to go into your own office. And so whether or not you need to let go or you need to make some different decisions or changes, because that's a passion that you started something. And when it feels like a job and a burden, and you're trying to force something, I think that's the other thing when it feels forced. That's again, that's a hard discernment. We've all been there, all three of us, when like challenges, I'd say life challenges, the roadblocks, when you feel like something blew up in your face, to me, that's a little bit different than force. So there's also gut strength and grit, where you just kind of push through. But I think somewhere all in our inner souls, we know the difference if we reflect much enough, the difference between forcing something because we want it to work versus pushing through hard times. And I think that's probably the biggest discernment of, is it pride making you push through? Is it, whatever that is? And that's, again, it's being really deep reflective. And sometimes that's it's easier to blame lack of sales, the economy, the everything else, versus when I love the phrase that a company takes on, or every organization takes on the characteristics of their leader. That's a proven fact. And when you begin to force something, then that literally becomes the whole culture and MO of all of your people. And so I think that's probably the difference of when it's being forced versus just struggles.
I love that. One more thing too, I want to say thank you for pushing me to reach out or suggesting to reach out to TJ Morris. I'm excited. He's actually going to be a guest on the show already. I haven't even connected with him yet, and he's going to be a guest. So
oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but what I ended up going down his rabbit hole, and I shared his podcast and things like that with Sarah Elizabeth. And what I was actually watching one of his episodes, and he had mentioned, it was a business one. I don't even know what he was saying, but he was basically saying that you kind of go back to that. What's that goal? What you said? What's the one goal that you would like as a result of this? What is that? And then he simplified it by saying, does this meet that goal or does it not? He actually said it's really simple because he was answering questions from his audience. And he's like, this is so simple. We overcomplicate it. We get our emotions and everything else involved. And he said, but basically all you have to do is just go, what's the goal? What's the result? Does this get me to that? And that's it. And I also love what you said about the passion here, right? Because I mean, I know even with Red Lotus Life has been going since 2018. And Sarah Elizabeth knew all about it back when I was thinking about it as an idea. And so it's been interesting because so many times, and she knows this too, so many times I've been like, I don't know if Red Lotus Life is still something that to do in the right, is this the right direction? And I tell you what, every single time, yeah, whenever I think about the passion and I think about the end goal, that actually is 100% yes. In fact, well, I was going to swear, but I don't want to get censored. So it's a yes. It's a full body yes. So I love that that's the advice that you gave too on that. I know that our time is starting to come to a close. Sarah, did you have anything else that you wanted to ask Janna real fast?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about branding. I know that you do a little bit of work with branding when you're working with companies or visionaries. So I'd love to hear your thoughts around branding.
Oh my goodness. So that could be in a complete another conversation that we could go through. But I think the biggest thing is, again, so if I start working with a visionary, I really do. I connect their idea, exactly what you were saying, Lori. Does what you're doing match what your company says they're doing? And then when I really love helping someone tell their story. And that's exactly what I did with TJ. I remember when I met with him the first time. But how do you tell your story? And how do you really connect on an emotional level with the problem you're solving with your clients or your customers? Because at the end of the day, I really resonate with Donald Miller's book, Story Brand. And we are the guides as company owners and visionaries. The best way is we are guides to make our customer the hero. And I love that analogy. You think of every great movie. You think of, Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan. You think of all of the great like hero movies. There's always this other person in there that's not the star of the movie, but the one that's kind of pushing them and making them to be successful. That little kind of coach in their ear, that the one that guides them, mentor shapes them, picks them up when they fall down. And that's really ultimately, to me, the best way to serve as a company and to make it not about us, and to always remember at the end of the day, to be the best is you always give more when you serve. And that's the key that I use when I start with branding. What's the problem you solve? And then how do you address that in terms of what your customers would say to you? Not what you're selling them, not the product you offer, but do I hurt? Do I not have enough time? Even with your audience, do I suffer from a ceiling? Do I live in a victim mentality and I want out? Do I want to find freedom? So you almost take their words that they come to you, and that becomes how you connect with them. Because if we all are honest, we look at Instagram or we look at Facebook ads, and the ones that we get, it's like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I said to myself this morning. And that's by design, but that's really how you see yourself that's how you want your customers to see yourself in your story. And I love the part that if a great brand that a customer sees them as an essential part of their life, because it becomes like family, it becomes like community, and they connect with them on such a level that they can't imagine doing life without your brand.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So the lifestyle brand, that's something that's been in our field a lot. So I really love making that connection.
Right. And you can create a consulting company to be a lifestyle brand too. It doesn't have to be clothing or, that industry or the outdoor industry. But that's the TED Talk version, the micro TED Talk of what a brand is. But I do love talking about that because I think that's essential. You could have the best company, but if you're not sharing the story. In fact, a client just the other day, I was like, hey, I get everything you're going. I get your 5-year vision. I get your expansion, but we're missing the heart. We're missing, I need your passion in this, and that will answer all these questions we keep having. And so I think, again, it goes back to the owner, not just your vision or passion, but really get the heart of it. And then really it just tells a story for itself.
I think that's the whole reason why people go into business, right? Is there's a problem that they want to solve, and it's usually a problem that they had that they discovered how to solve. And so there is that story attached. There is that heart in it. So I love that too. Well, Janna, as we start to close up, is there anything else that you wanted to share before we say goodbye?
I think just the one thing is visionaries, don't give up and don't let anybody discourage you. or disparage your idea, because those ideas are God-given. Now, how it turns out may look different, but don't lose sight of what those ideas are and how to change the world. Just continue to find the people and surround yourself to help you bring that to fruition.
I love that. Okay. Well, I think that's perfect to end on because it goes right in line with what we do here at Red Lotus Life. I absolutely love it. We're just so grateful for you. Thank you so much for coming on. Also thank you to everyone who's listening or watching. Thank you for being here and sharing your time with us as well. If you like what we are doing here, we appreciate the like so that we know that you do want to see more of this. If you do like it, go ahead and hit subscribe, because we do come out with something at least once a week. I mean, last month it was every day something came out, but you'll get notifications when it comes out. And then if you want to dive deeper with us, we do have the Say Yes to Soul membership. But if you are a visionary leader and you'd like to get really super focused on your vision and actually releasing conditioning around that, the limiting beliefs and the blocks, we ask you and invite you to join and check out the container, because that's actually where we really deep dive with visionary leaders in this way. But Janna, how can people get in touch with you? Because you are the work that we do here with the clients that we do this work with, it's so compatible.
Yeah.
So how can people reach out to you if they would like to work with you?
My website is jducksolutions.com. And again, we can do just a free complimentary call, because it's a great fit. And we do everything from one-on-one strategy sessions to like a month long to whole projects. So we really work with where you are. We meet you where you are. And, we just want to get to know you and work with you and help create that vision.
Well, thank you so much for being on, and have an amazing rest of your day.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And live your life today. It doesn't matter what they say.